There is a Harley somewhere with over 340,000 miles on its original engine, and it has never been rebuilt or left its owner stranded. That is no accident. Today, I am counting down the 10 Harley-Davidson motorcycles that simply refuse to die, explaining the engineering behind their legendary durability. Stay until number 1 to discover the most bulletproof engine Harley ever built, and why the company ultimately discontinued it. Number 10. The Sportster 1200 from 2007 to 2017, Nightster Iron 48. Let's start with the bike everyone dismisses, which is exactly why it's on this list. The Sportster gets labeled a beginner bike, but the Evolution 1200 engine proved otherwise by remaining largely unchanged from 1986 to 2021. Engines don't last 35 years in production unless they're reliable. One reason is its unit construction design, where the engine and transmission share the same case and oil supply, eliminating separate seals and leak points found on big twins. Its 4-cam valve train also spreads the workload, reducing wear. The sweet spot is the models from 2007 to 2017, which gained rubber engine mounts and fuel injection for smoother, more dependable operation. The biggest enemies are neglected primary chain adjustments and incorrect oil, not high mileage. A well-maintained Sportster with 100,000 miles is far from unusual, but this next bike proved Harley could build a truly modern engine, and almost nobody bought it. Number 9. The V-Rod from 2002 to 2017. Here's the Harley that many fans overlook, but mechanics respect. The V-Rod's Revolution engine is a liquid-cooled, 60-degree DOHCV twin with 4 valves per cylinder, co-developed with Porsche. Unlike traditional air-cooled Harleys, it maintains a stable operating temperature in any conditions, reducing heat-related wear. It also revs to 9,000 RPM, a sign of a strong, precisely engineered bottom end. High-mileage V-Rods with well over 150,000 miles on the original engine are common, thanks to hydraulic lash adjusters that eliminate valve adjustments. Routine maintenance is mostly oil and coolant changes. The most common failures are the stator and fuel pump, not the engine itself. It ranks lower only because it's a niche model with limited aftermarket support and fewer mechanics familiar with it. But wait until you hear about the Harley built for police departments that couldn't afford to be stranded. Number 8. The 1999 to 2006 Twin Cam 88. Now here's a genuinely controversial pick, and I'm going to defend it with specifics. The Twin Cam has a bad reputation. Some of that is earned. Most of it belongs to the wrong engine. Here's the distinction that changes everything. The Twin Cam 88 is 88 cubic inches. The Twin Cam 96, 103, and 110 that came later are bigger bores in the same case. And here's what that means. The 88 has the most cylinder wall material, the most cooling fin area per cubic inch, and the least thermal stress of any twin cam ever made. Every displacement increase after 1999 took metal out and put heat in. The 88's real problem was the cam chain tensioner. Harley used spring-loaded shoes riding on the cam chains, and those shoes are a wear item, and when they wear through, the debris goes into the oil pump. That's the failure everyone talks about, and it's real. But here's what almost nobody tells you. It's a $100 fix, once, forever. A gear drive cam conversion or a hydraulic tensioner upgrade eliminates the failure mode permanently. Do it at 60,000 miles as scheduled maintenance, and the engine's single design flaw stops existing. Harley themselves went to hydraulic tensioners in 2006. They knew. Once you delete that flaw, what's left is the most conservatively stressed big twin of the modern era. The 88 makes about 80 horsepower from 88 cubic inches. That's a stress level so low it's almost lazy. The 110 was making nearly 115 from the same basic case, and the 110 is the engine that gave the twin cam its reputation. The buy, a 1999 to 2006 twin cam 88, tensioners already addressed, and you have a 200,000-mile engine that costs a fraction of anything newer. But before we get into the really durable stuff, there's one more modern bike that deserves its place. Number 7. The 2017 to present Milwaukee-Eight 107 touring models only. Here is the newest engine on this list, and it is here because Harley fixed the two things that killed twin cams. Fix 1. The cam chain tensioner problem is gone. The Milwaukee-Eight runs a single camshaft driven by a chain with a hydraulic tensioner from day one. No spring shoes, no wear item feeding debris into your oil pump. The single biggest twin cam failure mode was engineered out. Fix 2, and this is the big one. The touring Milwaukee-Eight 107 runs precision oil cooling, or twin cooling, on the exhaust valve area, the hottest part of the engine, and the part that made twin cam riders hate summer traffic. The rear cylinder exhaust valve is where air-cooled V-twins die, because the rear cylinder sits in the front cylinder's hot air. Harley finally admitted this, and put liquid coolant exactly there. Here is the specific reason I am saying 107 and not 114. Same case, same architecture, more bore. The 107 makes about 111 pound-feet. The 114 makes about 119. That extra torque comes from more displacement in a case designed around 107 cubic inches. It is the same story as the twin cam 88 versus the 110, and the same conclusion applies. The smaller one lives longer. Here is the honest limitation. The oldest Milwaukee-Eight is a 2017. We have 9 years of field data, not 30. What we can say is that the specific failures that define the twin cam era are not showing up, and touring 107s crossing 100,000 miles with nothing but oil changes are now routine rather than notable. The one thing to watch: the hydraulic lifters. Some early Milwaukee-Eights had lifter issues. Check service history before you buy, and use the correct oil weight. This engine has tighter clearances than anything before it, and it is less forgiving of the any oil is fine attitude that shovelheads tolerated. Now let's talk about a bike that police departments trusted with their lives. Number 6. The 1993 to 1999 FXR and FXR-T. Here's a bike that Harley discontinued, then had to bring back because dealers wouldn't stop asking. The FXR is not exotic. It's an Evolution big twin in a frame designed by Eric Buell. And that frame is the entire story. Here's what makes it different. The FXR uses a rubber-isolated engine mounting system in a stiff, fully triangulated tube frame. Softails bolt the engine solid. Dyna mounts are simpler and softer. The FXR's system lets the engine shake while the chassis stays rigid, which means the engine's vibration never enters the frame, and the frame's flex never enters the engine. Why does that translate to reliability? Because vibration is what breaks Harleys. Not compression, not heat, but vibration. Every bracket, every wiring connector, every exhaust hanger, every fastener on an air-cooled 45-degree V-twin lives in an environment designed to shake it apart. Remove the vibration path and the entire motorcycle stops destroying itself. Here's the proof, and it's the good kind. The California Highway Patrol ran FXRs for years. Police bikes idle for hours, get ridden hard from cold, run at low speed and heat, and get maintained on a schedule instead of on a feeling. That's the worst duty cycle a motorcycle can have. The FXR did that job for a decade. The Evolution engine underneath is the real reason it survives. The Evo was Harley's response to nearly going bankrupt on the shovelhead's reputation: aluminum heads, a proper oil-tight bottom end, and a design brief that was explicitly "do not fail." It's not fast, roughly 70 horsepower from 80 inches, but that low stress is exactly why it goes forever. The catch: they're expensive now. The market figured this out. A clean FXR costs more than a newer, worse motorcycle. That's the market telling you something true. Before we get into the top 5, do me a favor and hit that like button. We went through service bulletins, engine teardowns, and talked to guys who've turned wrenches on these things for 30 years to find out what actually breaks and what doesn't. Every like gets this in front of another rider who's about to overpay for the wrong Harley. Done. Perfect. Now here's where it gets serious. Number 5. The 1984 to 1999 Evolution Big Twin, any Softail, Dyna, or Touring. Let's talk about the engine that saved the company. Here's the context most people miss. In 1981, Harley was so broken that the executives bought the company back from AMF because nobody else wanted it. The shovelhead's reputation had gotten so bad that leaks oil had become the entire cultural understanding of the brand. The Evolution engine wasn't a product improvement. It was survival. Here's what they actually changed, and every one of these is a specific durability win. They went to aluminum cylinder heads. Cast iron heads hold heat. Aluminum sheds it. On an air-cooled engine, head temperature is the thing that kills valve seats and warps surfaces, and Harley cut it directly. They changed the head gasket sealing entirely. Shovelhead heads used a design that fought thermal expansion. The Evo's sealing accommodates it. That's why an Evo doesn't weep oil and a shovel does. They redesigned the valve angles and the combustion chamber to run reliably on the unleaded pump gas that had just become universal, which is why an Evo runs fine on whatever's in the pump today and older engines don't. And here's the number that matters. The Evo Big Twin makes about 70 to 80 horsepower from 80 cubic inches. Compare that to a twin cam 110 making 115 from 110. The Evo is barely trying. Low cylinder pressure, low heat, huge margins on every component. That is what a 250,000-mile engine looks like from the inside. Real world, Evo Big Twins going past 200,000 miles on original internals is the expectation, not the exception. There are FLHS in the 300,000 range with the original bottom end. What kills them? Nothing really. The failures are ancillary: stators, starters, the occasional wiring harness. The engine itself just accumulates miles. But this next one takes that same idea and makes it lighter. Number 4. The 1991 to 2005 Dyna Superglide FXD. Here's what happens when you take the Evolution engine and remove everything else. The Superglide is the base Dyna. No fairing, no bags, minimal electronics. An Evo Big Twin in a 2-point rubber isolated frame, and almost nothing else on the motorcycle.
We spent years figuring this out so you don't have to. Ride longer, spend less. The complete motorcycle maintenance handbook is the shortcut. Every method from this channel, organized and ready to use. Scan the code on screen and it's yours.
Here's the principle that makes it number 4, and it's the one people don't want to hear. Reliability is mostly an equipment count problem. Every component on a motorcycle has a failure probability. Add an infotainment head unit, a fairing full of speakers, cruise control, ABS, an electronic throttle, heated grips, and a security system, and you haven't made the engine less reliable. You've added 20 new things that can leave you standing on a shoulder. The Superglide has none of them. Then there's the Dyna's 2-point rubber mount. It's simpler than the FXR system, with fewer parts, less to wear, and it does the important job of keeping engine vibration out of the frame. And critically, the Dyna frame separates the engine from the transmission the way a Big Twin should, but does it in a chassis that's straightforward to work on. You can pull a Dyna primary on the side of the road with hand tools. Here's the practical proof. The Superglide is the bike that high-mileage riders keep. Not because it's the best at anything, it's the least bad at everything. Nothing on it is stressed. Nothing on it is exotic. Everything on it is a part that 50,000 other bikes also use, which means it's cheap and available forever. The Superglides from 1999 to 2005 get the twin cam and are still excellent, but the 1991 to 1998 Evo Superglide is the specific bike I'd put money on outlasting anything else on the road. Now let's talk about the bike Harley builds when failure isn't an option. Number 3. The Road King from 2002 to the present, FLHR. Here's the touring bike that keeps working when the fancy ones don't. The Road King is a street glide or ultra with the electronics removed. That's not an insult, that's the entire engineering thesis, and it's why it's number 3. Here's the specific difference. A Road King has a detachable windshield instead of a frame-mounted fairing. That fairing on a street glide holds the radio, the speakers, the wiring harness for all of it, the infotainment display. And it does all that while sitting in the airstream vibrating at road frequency for 100,000 miles. It's the single biggest cluster of failure-prone components on a touring Harley, and the Road King doesn't have it. Then there's the electrical load. Every accessory draws current, and current draw goes through the stator and the voltage regulator, which are, genuinely, the most common failure points on any modern Harley. A loaded Ultra Limited is asking its charging system for everything it has. A Road King with a headlight and a taillight is asking for a fraction of it. Same stator, half the demand, and the failure rate follows. Here's the field evidence that matters. Police departments buy Road Kings, not Street Glides. The FLHP police package is a Road King derivative, and it's chosen by fleet managers whose entire job is minimizing downtime, people who have zero emotional attachment to the brand and who track every hour of service time in a spreadsheet. That's the most honest reliability endorsement in motorcycling. And here's the practical part. A Road King crossing 150,000 miles is normal. The twin-cam 88 versions with the tensioner fix and the Milwaukee-Eight 107 versions are both genuinely 200,000-mile motorcycles. The bike is a fuel tank, an engine, and 2 bags. There's almost nothing on it to fail, but this next one is the most overbuilt motorcycle Harley has ever sold to the public. Number 2. The 2008 to 2016 Road Glide and Street Glide with the Twin Cam 96. Here's the one that surprises people, and I want to explain exactly why it beats bikes with better reputations. The 96 gets lumped in with the 103 and 110 as the bad twin cams. That's lazy. Here's what actually happened in 2007 when Harley went from 88 to 96. They didn't just bore it out. They kept the same 88-inch bore and increased the stroke. That's a fundamentally different decision. A bigger bore takes material out of the cylinder walls and reduces cooling fin area. A longer stroke does neither. The cylinder walls stay exactly as thick, the fins stay exactly as big, and the extra displacement comes from the crank instead. And here's the consequence. The 96 makes its torque at lower revolutions per minute than the 88 did. 92 pound-feet at around 3,000 revolutions per minute, which means in normal riding, the 96 is turning fewer revolutions to do the same job. Fewer revolutions is less wear, on everything, permanently. Second thing they got right in 2007, the 6-speed cruise drive transmission became standard. The 5-speed before it put highway cruising at higher engine revolutions per minute. 6th gear drops a touring Harley to roughly 2,400 revolutions per minute at 75 miles an hour. Over 100,000 highway miles, that's tens of millions of fewer engine cycles. Third, 2007 is also the year Harley went to hydraulic cam chain tensioners across the twin cam line. The 88's one fatal flaw was fixed before the 96 shipped. So what you have in a 2008 to 2016 touring bike with the 96 is the tensioner problem solved from the factory, displacement added the safe way, a 6-speed keeping engine speed down, and, critically, not the 103 or 110 that came after and put real heat into the same case. Here's what to check. Some of these have been upgraded to 103 or 110 by previous owners. That undoes everything I just described. You want a stock 96. The unmodified one is the one that lives. Now here's number 1, and here's the engine Harley killed because it was too good. Number 1. The 1984 to 1999 Evolution engine in the Softail, specifically the FLS-TC Heritage and FXST. Taking the top spot is the most bulletproof combination Harley-Davidson has ever assembled, and the reason is a single design decision that the company later abandoned. I have talked about the Evo engine. Here is what makes the Softail Evo the number 1, and it is not the engine alone, it is what is around it. The Softail frame bolts the engine in rigidly, solid mounts, no rubber. That is the opposite of everything I said about the FXR and the Dyna, and it sounds like a contradiction. Here is why it is not. When an engine is rubber mounted, it moves, and every single thing connected to it, the exhaust, the wiring harness, the oil lines, the fuel line, the shift linkage, has to accommodate that movement forever. Those connection points are where things fatigue and break. When the engine is solid mounted, the engine and the chassis are one object. Nothing flexes at the joints because there are no joints doing work. The vibration goes into the rider instead of into the hardware. That is the trade Harley made in 1984 and abandoned by the early 2000s. Comfort for the rider versus stress on the machine. They chose the machine. And that is the specific reason a solid mount Evo Softail is the last Harley standing. Now stack that on the Evo engine's numbers. 80 cubic inches, 70-something horsepower, aluminum heads, unleaded ready combustion chambers, roughly half the specific output of a twin-cam 110 from an engine designed by a company that had just nearly died from building unreliable motorcycles and was not going to do it twice. Here is the field evidence. Evo Softails past 250,000 miles on original internals exist in real numbers. The motor company's own engineers have said the Evo was overbuilt, designed with margins that no accountant would approve today. And that is exactly the point. And here is the answer to what I promised you at the start. Why Harley killed it. The Evo did not die because it broke. It died because it could not grow. 80 inches was the ceiling. The architecture would not take more displacement without compromising exactly the margins that made it immortal. And Harley's customers wanted more. So in 1999, the twin cam arrived, designed from the start to be bored out repeatedly. 88, then 96, then 103, then 110. Every one of those steps ate margin. The twin cam was not a worse design. It was a design built to be stretched, and then it got stretched. The Evolution died because it was too conservative to sell more of. It was overbuilt for a market that stopped rewarding overbuilding. And that is precisely why the one in the garage still runs. Want more tips, trends, and insights? Subscribe and see you in the next video.